The plane is spinning out of control, diving toward the earth at terrifying speed. Spectators below scream in horror as they watch what appears to be a fatal crash about to unfold. The engine sputters and roars, the wings shake violently against the wind, and for a moment it seems like physics itself will claim another victim from the dangerous world of early aviation. But inside that cockpit, hands steady on the controls, is someone who was never supposed to be there, a black woman in 1920s America. Calmly executing the most dangerous aerial maneuver most pilots would never dare attempt. Her name was Bessie Coleman, and she was about to prove that the sky belonged to everyone, even those the world said could never fly. If you think you've seen inspiring aviation stories, wait until you hear what this woman accomplished against impossible odds. If you enjoy this kind of story buried by official history, subscribe to the channel now, and leave a comment saying "Remember Bessie Coleman" so her name soars forever. This is the story of the first black woman to earn a pilot's license anywhere in the world. But here's what will shock you. She didn't just break barriers, she shattered them so completely that even today, nearly a century later, her achievements seem almost impossible to believe. We're talking about a woman who performed aerial stunts that terrified experienced male pilots, who drew crowds of thousands just to watch her defy death itself. Picture this: it's 1921, and aviation is barely 20 years old. Most Americans have never even seen an airplane, let alone flown in one. Flying is considered so dangerous that even experienced male pilots die regularly in horrific crashes. Newspapers are filled with stories of aviation disasters, of pilots whose bodies are found scattered across fields after their machines failed them. The idea of a woman flying is considered not just scandalous, but medically impossible. Doctors actually believed women's bodies couldn't handle the physical stress of flight. The idea of a black woman flying, absolutely unthinkable. Yet there was Bessie, not just flying, but performing death-defying stunts that left crowds speechless. Loop-the-loops that turned the world upside down, barrel rolls that twisted through the air like a corkscrew, figure eights that required split-second timing and nerves of steel. One mistake, one moment of hesitation, one mechanical failure meant certain death, and she did it all with a smile on her face, waving to crowds below who couldn't believe what they were witnessing. But here's the part that should make every American furious. She couldn't learn to fly in her own country. Every single flight school in America slammed their doors in her face. Not because she lacked skill, intelligence, or determination, but because she was black and female. Two strikes that made her invisible to the white male world of aviation. So what did Bessie do when faced with this wall of rejection? She made a decision so audacious, so incredibly brave, that it still takes your breath away today. She decided to cross an ocean, learn a foreign language, and chase her dreams in a country that had just emerged from the bloodiest war in human history. She would go to France, where aviation was born, and prove that talent has no color, no gender, no limits. But the journey to that spinning plane, to that moment of aerial mastery, began 29 years earlier in the cotton fields of Texas, where a little girl dared to look up at birds flying overhead and wonder, what if that could be me? June 15, 1921, the Fédération Aéronautique Internationale office in Paris buzzes with bureaucratic activity as officials process another routine pilot's license. But this isn't routine at all. They're about to issue International Pilot's License, number 18,310, to someone who will make history. The name on the document reads Elizabeth Coleman, but the world will remember her as Bessie. And in this moment, she becomes the first black woman anywhere on Earth to hold a pilot's license. Think about the magnitude of that achievement. This wasn't just breaking a barrier. This was obliterating every assumption about who could touch the sky. While American aviation schools were still debating whether women had the mental capacity for flight, while Jim Crow laws declared that black people were inferior beings, here was proof that talent recognizes no boundaries. But here's what makes this moment even more extraordinary. Bessie had accomplished something that no American flight school would even let her attempt. She had traveled 4,000 miles, learned French from scratch, and mastered flying in a foreign country because her own nation had slammed every door in her face. She turned rejection into rocket fuel for her dreams. The French instructors at the École d'Aviation des Frères Caudron were initially skeptical when this young black woman from Texas showed up at their airfield, but skepticism turned to amazement as they watched her natural talent unfold. She had an intuitive understanding of aerodynamics that couldn't be taught. When other students struggled with basic maneuvers, Bessie was already mastering advanced techniques. Her instructors began calling her la pilote courageuse, the brave pilot. But getting that license was just the beginning of an impossible journey. Now she faced an even greater challenge, returning to America where her accomplishments would mean nothing to a segregated society. Where would she fly? Who would hire a black woman pilot? How could she make a living in a field that barely accepted white women, let alone women of color? The answer would come in the form of barnstorming, traveling air shows that brought aviation to small towns across America. But these weren't gentle demonstrations. We're talking about aerial performances so dangerous that pilots routinely died attempting them. Shows where audiences came specifically hoping to witness spectacular crashes. Entertainment that combined the thrill of circus acts with the very real possibility of witnessing someone's final moments. And Bessie didn't just participate in barnstorming, she became its most fearless star. While other pilots played it safe with basic maneuvers, Bessie pushed every boundary. She would climb 2 dangerous altitudes, then dive at full speed toward the ground, pulling up at the last possible second. She performed loops so tight that the G-forces would leave most pilots unconscious. She executed barrel rolls so perfectly that even experienced aviators would hold their breath in awe. American newspapers struggled to report on her performances. How do you describe a black woman outflying white men in an era when such a thing was supposed to be impossible? How do you explain to readers that their assumptions about race and gender have been shattered by someone performing miracles in the sky above their heads? But Bessie had a bigger dream than just entertaining crowds. She was planning something that would change aviation forever, and the establishment had no idea what was coming. January 26, 1892. Atlanta, Texas, a small cotton town where the future seemed predetermined by the color of your skin. In a tiny wooden cabin with gaps in the walls that let in winter wind, Susan Coleman gives birth to her 10th child, a daughter she names Elizabeth Mary. The midwife who delivers the baby has no idea she's just helped bring into the world someone who will literally reach for the stars. This is Jim Crow, Texas, where black children are expected to pick cotton, not chase dreams. Where education for African Americans barely exists. And the idea of a black person flying an airplane is so absurd it wouldn't even occur to anyone as a possibility. The Wright brothers won't make their first flight for another 11 years. But even when they do, aviation will remain a white man's world for decades to come. But something was different about little Bessie Coleman from the very beginning. While other children played with dolls or marbles, she would lie on her back in the cotton fields, staring up at the sky for hours, watching birds soar overhead with an intensity that worried her mother. "What are you looking at up there, child?" Susan would ask. "I'm watching how they do it, Mama," Bessie would reply. "Watching how they fly." Her father, George Coleman, was a sharecropper who could barely read, but he understood that education was the only escape from the brutal cycle of poverty. Against all odds in a system designed to keep black children in the fields, he insisted that Bessie and her siblings attend the one-room schoolhouse for black children that operated only for people months a year, when cotton wasn't being harvested. But here's where Bessie's story takes an extraordinary turn. She wasn't just attending school, she was devouring every book she could find. By age 6, she was reading at a level that amazed her teachers. By 8, she was helping other children with their lessons. By 10, she was walking for miles each way to attend a better school in a neighboring town, determined to get every scrap of education available to her. The Coleman family was desperately poor. Bessie wore the same dress to school every day, patched and repatched until it was more patches than original fabric. She often went to school hungry because there wasn't enough food at home. But poverty couldn't crush her spirit or dim her curiosity. While other children complained about their circumstances, Bessie was already planning her escape. When she was just 9 years old, her father abandoned the family, unable to cope with the crushing weight of sharecropping debt and racial oppression. He moved to Oklahoma Territory, leaving Susan to raise 10 children alone. Most families would have collapsed under such pressure. But Susan Coleman was made of steel, and she raised her daughter to be the same way. Bessie took on adult responsibilities while still a child. She helped her mother with washing and ironing for white families, earning pennies that kept food on the table. She picked cotton during harvest season, her small hands bleeding from the sharp plants, but she never stopped dreaming of something bigger. While her hands worked in the fields, her mind soared with the birds overhead. By age 12, she was the best student in her school, despite missing classes to work. Her teachers begged her to continue her education, seeing a brilliance that couldn't be wasted. But there was no high school for black children in Atlanta, Texas. No college opportunities. No clear path forward for a brilliant black girl in rural Texas. The white children in town attended well-funded schools with proper books, desks, and supplies. They had teachers who had attended college, libraries filled with knowledge, and futures that stretched as far as their ambitions could reach. Meanwhile, Bessie's school had hand-me-down books with pages missing, benches instead of desks, and teachers who did their best with almost no resources. Most young women in her situation would have accepted their fate, married young, and started the cycle over again. But not Bessie Coleman. At age 18, she made a decision that would shock her family and set her on a course toward aviation history. She was going to leave Texas forever, and nothing would ever be the same. 1915. At age 23, Bessie Coleman steps off a train at Chicago's Union Station with nothing but a cardboard suitcase, $2 in her pocket, and dreams that seem impossible even to her. The Great Migration is in full swing. Thousands of African Americans fleeing the suffocating Jim Crow South for the promise of better opportunities in northern cities. But Bessie isn't just another migrant seeking factory work. She's chasing something no black woman has ever dared to pursue. Chicago in 1915 is a revelation. For the first time in her life, Bessie sees black people working as more than field hands and domestic servants. There are black doctors, lawyers, business owners, and teachers. The South Side is bustling with African American-owned shops, newspapers, and theaters. This is a world where dreams might actually have a chance to survive. But survival comes first. Bessie finds work at the White Sox barbershop on State Street, learning to be a manicurist. It's respectable work that pays better than anything she could have found in Texas. Her hands, once bloodied by cotton plants, now carefully tend to the nails of Chicago's elite, including pilots from the nearby flying fields who speak excitedly about their aerial adventures. And that's where everything changes. Sitting in that barbershop, listening to these men describe the sensation of flight, something awakens in Bessie that had been sleeping since childhood. These aren't mythical figures or impossible dreams. These are regular men, talking casually about controlling machines that soar through clouds. If they can do it, why can't she? But when Bessie starts asking questions about learning to fly, the responses are swift and brutal. The men laugh, not polite chuckles, but harsh, dismissive laughter that cuts like glass. Flying ain't for women, they tell her. Especially not colored women. You stick to doing nails, girl. Those words would have crushed most people. Instead, they ignited something fierce in Bessie Coleman. She begins reading everything she can find about aviation. She haunts the Chicago Public Library, devouring technical manuals, newspaper articles about famous pilots, anything that can teach her about the mechanics of flight. She learns about lift and drag, about engine specifications, about the brave men pushing the boundaries of this new technology. Then comes 1917, and with it, a conversation that will change her life forever. Robert Abbott, the influential publisher of the Chicago Defender newspaper, becomes a regular client at the barbershop. Abbott is a visionary who understands that representation matters. that seeing someone who looks like you achieving the impossible can transform entire communities. During one of their conversations, Abbott makes an observation that hits Bessie like lightning. You know, in France, women are flying. French women, American women who went overseas, but I've never heard of a Negro woman pilot anywhere in the world. He pauses, studying her reaction. Whoever becomes the first would make history, would show the world that we can do anything white folks can do. That night, Bessie can't sleep. She walks the streets of Chicago until dawn, Abbott's words echoing in her mind. The first Negro woman pilot in the world, not just breaking barriers, creating them. Not just achieving a dream, but proving that dreams themselves have no color. But there's a problem that seems insurmountable. No American flight school will accept her. She's already tried. The rejections come fast and final. We don't train women. We don't train coloureds. We especially don't train colored women. The aviation establishment has made its position crystal clear. Most people would accept defeat at this point. The obstacles are simply too high, the prejudices too entrenched. But Bessie Coleman isn't most people. She's the girl who walked 4 miles to school every day, who taught herself to read advanced texts, who left everything behind to chase an impossible dream. And Abbott has planted a seed that's already growing into something revolutionary. If America won't teach her to fly, she'll find someone who will. Even if it means crossing an ocean, learning a foreign language, and risking everything on a bet that talent matters more than the color of her skin. The plan forming in her mind is so audacious, so unprecedented, that even Abbott will be shocked when she tells him. But Bessie Coleman is done asking for permission to chase her dreams. 1919. Bessie Coleman sits in the cramped office of the Chicago Defender, facing Robert Abbott across a desk covered with newspapers and aviation magazines. What she's about to propose is so outrageous that Abbott initially thinks she's joking. "I want to go to France," she announces. "I want to learn to fly there, and then come back as the world's first black woman pilot." Abbott stares at her for a long moment. France, a country still rebuilding from the most devastating war in human history, where she doesn't speak the language, has no connections, and no guarantee any flight school will accept her. The idea is beyond ambitious, it's seemingly suicidal. But as Bessie explains her reasoning, Abbott begins to understand her genius. American flight schools have made their racism crystal clear. No exceptions, no negotiations, no hope. But France is different. French women are already flying. The war has shattered many traditional barriers. And French aviation schools, desperate for students after losing so many pilots in the war, might be willing to judge her by her skill rather than her skin color. There's just one tiny problem. Bessie doesn't speak French. Not a word. She's never been outside of Texas and Illinois, let alone crossed an ocean. She has no money for passage, no way to support herself in a foreign country, and no guarantee she'll even be accepted into flight school once she arrives. Most rational people would abandon such an impossible plan. But Bessie Coleman has never been accused of being rational. She enrolls in French language classes at night, working her manicure job during the day, and studying vocabulary until her eyes burn with exhaustion. She practices pronunciation with French immigrants in Chicago, begging them to correct her accent, to help her sound less American. Meanwhile, Abbott becomes her most crucial ally. He recognizes that Bessie's success would be more than personal achievement. It would be a powerful symbol for African Americans. Everywhere. In his newspaper columns, he begins promoting her story, describing her dream to readers across the country. Here is a young woman who refuses to accept the limitations society has placed on her, he writes. Her success will be our success. The response is immediate and overwhelming. Letters pour in from Black communities across America, many containing small donations, $1 here, 50 cents there, money scraped together by people who could barely afford food, but who understood the importance of what Bessie was attempting. Domestics, laborers, small business owners, all contributing to send one of their own to chase an impossible dream. But even with community support, the financial mountain seems insurmountable. A ticket to France costs more than most black workers earn in 6 months. Living expenses in Paris, flight, school tuition, equipment, the numbers are staggering. Bessie realizes she needs more than community donations. She needs serious financial backing. That's when she makes another audacious decision. She approaches wealthy white businessmen in Chicago, proposing something unprecedented. They should invest in her becoming America's first black woman pilot, because it will make them money. When she returns from France, she'll perform in air shows, drawing crowds eager to see this miraculous achievement. They'll get a percentage of her earnings. Most of these businessmen laugh her out of their offices. But a few, perhaps recognizing the novelty value or simply intrigued by her determination, agree to small investments. It's not enough for luxury, but it might be enough for survival. By late 1920, Bessie has scraped together the funds for passage and basic expenses. She's achieved conversational French, though her Texas accent makes even simple words sound strange. She studied aviation theory until she can recite engine specifications from memory. But she's never actually seen the inside of an airplane, let alone flown in one. Abbott throws her a farewell party at the Chicago Defender office. As she stands before the gathered crowd of supporters, Bessie makes a promise that sends chills down every spine in the room. "I'm going to France as Elizabeth Coleman," she announces, her voice steady with determination. "But I'm coming back as brave Bessie, the first Negro woman to touch the sky." The ship to Le Havre leaves in 3 days. Bessie Coleman is about to embark on the most dangerous journey of her life, and she has no idea if she'll survive what's waiting for her on the other side of the ocean. November 20th, 1920. The SS Imperator rocks violently in Atlantic storms as Bessie Coleman grips the railing of the third-class deck, fighting seasickness and terror in equal measure. She's traveling in steerage, the cheapest passage, available crammed into a windowless compartment with dozens of other passengers seeking new lives in Europe. The ship is filled with war veterans, displaced persons, and dreamers like herself. But she's the only black woman traveling alone to chase something as impossible as flight. For 10 days, she battles not just the rolling seas, but the crushing weight of doubt. What if the French schools reject her too? What if her money runs out before she masters flying? What if she's making the biggest mistake of her life? During the darkest moments, when the ship lurches so violently that passengers scream in fear, Bessie closes her eyes and remembers that little girl in the Texas cotton fields, watching birds soar overhead. That child never doubted. That child knew she belonged in the sky. December 1st, 1920, Le Havre, France. Stepping off the ship onto French soil, Bessie experiences culture shock that nearly overwhelms her. Everything is different. The language flowing around her like music she can't quite understand. The architecture scarred by recent war, the people moving with a wariness that speaks of unimaginable loss. This is a country still healing from the Great War, still counting its dead, still learning to hope again. But there's something else in the air, something that takes Bessie's breath away: possibility. For the first time in her life, she's in a place where her skin color doesn't automatically disqualify her from her dreams. French people stare at her with curiosity rather than hatred. Shopkeepers serve her without the barely concealed hostility she's known all her life. She's still foreign, still different, but she's not automatically inferior. Paris in December 1920 is a city transforming itself. The war is over, but its ghosts linger everywhere. Buildings bear shrapnel scars, and too many women wear black for husbands and sons who will never come home. But there's also a fierce determination to rebuild, to create something better from the ashes of devastation. It's the perfect place for someone trying to create herself anew. Bessie finds lodging in a tiny room near the École d'Aviation des Frères Caudron in La Bougette, just outside Paris. The accommodations are Spartan: a narrow bed, a washstand, a single window that looks out onto the muddy airfield. But that view is everything. Every morning, she watches pilots taxi their planes across the field, engines roaring with power that makes her heart race. Her first day at the flight school nearly ends her dream before it begins. The director, Gaston Caudron, looks her up and down with obvious skepticism. A black woman from America wanting to learn to fly. It's unprecedented. He speaks to her in rapid French, testing her language skills, her determination, her sanity. But here's where months of preparation pay off. Bessie's French isn't perfect, but it's good enough. More importantly, her passion transcends language barriers. When she explains why she's traveled across an ocean to be here, when she describes her dream of becoming the first black woman pilot in the world, something in her voice convinces Cadran to give her a chance. "Very well," he says finally in heavily accented English. "We will see if you have the courage to match your ambition. But I warn you, flying will try to kill you every day. Many men have died learning what you wish to learn. Are you prepared for that?" Bessie's answer comes without hesitation. "Monsieur, I've been preparing to die for this dream my entire life. The only question is whether I'll die on the ground or in the sky." Her training begins the next morning at dawn. The airplane she learns in is a Nieuport 27, a single-seat biplane originally designed as a fighter during the war. It's temperamental, dangerous, and absolutely unforgiving of mistakes. The engine sounds like controlled explosions. The fabric wings shudder in the slightest wind, and the whole contraption seems held together more by hope than engineering. But the moment Bessie sees it, she knows she's home. This rickety machine represents everything she's dreamed of since childhood. This is her chance to touch the sky, to prove that dreams have no color, to become something the world has never seen before. The French mechanics watch with amusement as this black woman from Texas approaches their aircraft with reverence bordering on worship. They have no idea they're witnessing the beginning of aviation history. February 3, 1921. Dawn breaks cold and gray over La Bourget airfield as Bessie Coleman approaches the Nieuport 27 for her first solo flight. Her hands shake, not from fear, but from pure adrenaline. For 3 months, she's endured the most brutal training imaginable. French flight instructors don't coddle their students. They believe that if you can't handle criticism and pressure on the ground, you'll die in the air. Every morning has begun the same way. Pre-flight inspections that must be perfect. Engine checks that reveal the temperamental nature of early aircraft, and weather assessments that often ground flights for days. Bessie has learned that aviation in 1921 is as much about patience as courage. Weather kills more pilots than mechanical failure, and mechanical failure kills more pilots than pilot error. But today, the conditions are perfect. Clear skies, minimal wind, and an aircraft that purred through its morning inspection. Chief Instructor Henry Limitor stands beside the plane, his weathered face showing the strain of training yet another student in the deadly art of flight. He's lost 3 trainees to crashes in the past year, 2 to mechanical failures, 1 to pilot error that cost a promising young man his life. "Mademoiselle Coleman," he says in his gravelly voice, "today you fly alone. Everything I have taught you, everything you have practiced, it all comes down to this moment. The airplane does not care about your gender, your race, or your dreams. It only cares whether you respect its power and understand its limitations." Bessie nods, her throat too tight for words. She's memorized every gauge, every control, every emergency procedure. She can recite engine specifications, wind patterns, and landing approaches in her sleep. But this is different. This is the moment when theory becomes reality, when months of preparation face the ultimate test. She climbs into the cockpit, and immediately the world changes. The leather seat molds around her body. The stick fits perfectly in her hand, and the rudder pedals respond to the pressure of her feet. This machine, built for war and death, suddenly feels like an extension of herself. She runs through her pre-flight checklist one final time, each item a ritual that connects her to every pilot who has ever faced this moment. Contact. The propeller spins, the engine catches, and suddenly the Nieuport is alive beneath her. The whole airframe vibrates with barely contained power, like a racehorse straining at the starting gate. Bessie releases the brakes and begins her taxi to the runway, feeling the tail wheel shimmy over the rough ground, learning the delicate touch needed to keep the aircraft pointed straight. At the end of the runway, she stops and runs through her final checks. Engine temperature normal. Oil pressure good. Control surfaces moving freely. Weather conditions stable. Everything perfect except for the hammering of her heart against her ribs. She pushes the throttle forward and the Neoport leaps ahead like a living thing. The engine roar fills her ears, drowning out all other sound. The tail wheel lifts off first, then suddenly, miraculously, she's airborne. The ground falls away beneath her, and for the first time in her life, Bessie Coleman is flying. The sensation defies description. It's not just movement through 3 dimensions. It's liberation from every earthly constraint that has ever held her back. Up here, there are no color barriers, no gender limitations, no poverty or prejudice. There is only sky, endless and welcoming, stretching to horizons that seem infinite. She climbs to 1,000 feet and levels off, following her training routine exactly as practiced. Gentle turns to the left and right, testing how the aircraft responds to her inputs. Each movement builds her confidence, confirms that those months of ground preparation have created muscle memory that now guides her instinctively. Below, the French countryside spreads out like a patchwork quilt, fields and villages and roads that look like toys from this altitude. She can see the Eiffel Tower in the distance, a steel needle pointing toward the sky she now inhabits. She can see the scars of war, shell craters, and abandoned trenches that remind her this country has sacrificed everything for freedom. After 20 minutes aloft, she begins her approach to land. This is the most dangerous part. More pilots die during landing than any other phase of flight. The Neoport sinks toward the runway, engine throttled back, wings fighting to maintain lift in the thinner air near the ground. She flares at just the right moment, feels the main wheels kiss the earth, and rolls to a stop. When she shuts down the engine, the silence is deafening. She sits in the cockpit for several minutes, overwhelmed by what has just happened. She has done it. She has actually done it. She has flown an airplane, and lived to tell about it. But more than that, she has proven something that even she barely dared believe. A black woman can master the sky just as surely as anyone else. The dream that began in Texas cotton fields has become reality in French skies. June 15, 1921. Bessie Coleman steps off the ship at New York Harbor carrying something no black woman in history has ever possessed, an international pilot's license. The media frenzy that greets her return is unprecedented. Newspaper photographers push and shove for pictures. Reporters fire questions in rapid succession, and crowds gather just to see this impossible woman who has somehow learned to fly. But the headlines reveal America's deep discomfort with her achievement. "Colored girl learns to fly in France," reads one dismissive newspaper. Another calls her accomplishment a curious novelty. The white aviation establishment, still reeling from the shock that a black woman has invaded their exclusive domain, searches desperately for ways to minimize her achievement. However, in black communities across America, the reaction is electric. Churches hold special services to celebrate her success. The Chicago Defender runs front-page stories calling her our race's greatest aviation pioneer. Children who have never seen an airplane dream of following her path to the sky. She's not just a pilot. She's become a symbol of what's possible when talent meets determination. But symbols don't pay rent, and Bessie quickly discovers the harsh reality of being a black woman pilot in 1920s America. No airline will hire her. No aviation company will sponsor her. The military won't even consider her application. She's the most qualified black pilot in the world, and yet the aviation industry acts as if she doesn't exist. So Bessie creates her own path, barnstorming these traveling air shows crisscross America, bringing aviation to small towns where most people have never seen an airplane. But this isn't genteel entertainment. This is death-defying spectacle designed to thrill crowds who come hoping to witness spectacular crashes. Pilots routinely die performing stunts that push early aircraft beyond their limits. And Bessie doesn't just participate in barnstorming, she revolutionizes it. While other pilots stick to basic maneuvers, she develops a routine that leaves audiences speechless. She climbs 2 dangerous altitudes, then dives straight toward the ground at full throttle, pulling up at the last possible second in what she calls her death spiral. She performs loops so tight that spectators can hear her engine straining against the G-forces. Her signature move becomes the Bessie roll, a series of barrel rolls performed so close to the ground that her wingtips nearly touch the earth. It's a maneuver so dangerous that even experienced male pilots refuse to attempt it. But Bessie executes it flawlessly, show after show, her aircraft spinning through space like a dancer defying gravity itself. The crowds that come to see her are unlike anything aviation has ever witnessed. Entire Black communities travel hundreds of miles to watch one of their own perform miracles in the sky. She draws audiences of 5,000 to 10,000 people to town airfields that usually see a few dozen spectators. Children press against fence lines, watching in wonder as this impossible woman proves that the sky belongs to everyone. But Bessie has a bigger mission than just entertainment. At every air show, she makes the same speech. The air is the only place free from prejudices. I have made it my business to go where I have never been invited, and I intend to keep going. She talks about her dream of opening a flight school specifically for Black pilots, of creating opportunities that don't currently exist. Her performances become increasingly daring as she pushes both herself and her aircraft to their limits. She flies in weather conditions that ground other pilots. She performs at altitudes that would leave most people unconscious. She executes maneuvers that require split-second timing and nerves of absolute steel. American newspapers struggle to categorize her. How do you describe someone who challenges every assumption about race, gender, and capability? How do you explain to readers that their preconceptions have been shattered by a woman performing impossible feats 1,000 feet above their heads? The aviation establishment's strategy is clear: ignore her completely. They exclude her from pilot organizations, refuse to acknowledge her records, and pretend that her achievements don't exist. If they can't stop her from flying, they'll at least try to erase her from aviation history. But Bessie refuses to be erased. She grants interviews to any publication that will print them. She speaks at churches, schools, and community organizations. She poses for photographs that show her standing confidently beside her aircraft, leather helmet in hand, eyes focused on horizons that stretch beyond what most people can imagine. Her fame spreads internationally. European newspapers write admiringly about the American woman who learned to fly in France and returned to change her country's assumptions about who belongs in the cockpit. Aviation magazines publish technical articles about her flying abilities, forced to admit that her skills rival any pilot's. But success in barnstorming comes with a terrible cost. Every performance brings her closer to the statistical probability that claims most barnstorming pilots within 5 years. Every death-defying stunt increases the odds that mechanical failure, weather, or simple bad luck will end her career permanently. And on a beautiful spring morning in 1926, those odds are about to catch up with Queen Bessie, as she's become known to her adoring fans. April 30th, 1926. Jacksonville, Florida. The Curtiss JN for Jenny, that Bessie Coleman is flying as a passenger, suddenly goes into an uncontrollable dive. At 2,000 feet, the aircraft flips completely upside down. Bessie, who isn't wearing a seatbelt because she's been leaning over the side to survey the terrain for an upcoming airshow, falls from the open cockpit. She plummets toward Earth, and America loses its greatest aviation pioneer at just 34 years old. The news of her death spreads like wildfire through Black communities across the nation. Churches overflow with mourners who have never met her but feel they've lost a family member. The Chicago Defender runs a front-page obituary with the headline, "Brave Bessie dies as she lived, reaching for the sky." 10,000 people attend her funeral in Chicago, making it one of the largest gatherings in the city's history. But here's what should make every American furious. The white aviation establishment barely acknowledges her death. The same publications that covered every minor achievement by white male pilots give her passing a few dismissive paragraphs. The organizations that excluded her during life continue to ignore her even in death. It's as if they hoped that by refusing to recognize her achievements, they can erase her from history entirely. They couldn't have been more wrong. Bessie's death doesn't end her influence, it transforms her into something even more powerful, a martyr for the cause of aviation equality. The flight school she dreamed of opening becomes a rallying cry for the next generation. Her example inspires dozens of young black men and women to pursue pilot training, many of whom will become the Tuskegee Airmen who proved their worth in World War II. The ripple effects of her courage extend far beyond aviation. Every time a black person enters a previously all-white profession, Bessie's spirit soars with them. Every time someone refuses to accept society's limitations, her legacy grows stronger. She proved that barriers exist only in minds, not in reality, and that talent recognizes no color, no gender, no artificial boundaries. But perhaps most importantly, Bessie Coleman changed how black children see themselves. Before her, the sky was literally off limits to people of color. After her, young minds could look up at passing aircraft and think, if she could do it, maybe I can too. She didn't just break the color barrier in aviation, she shattered it so completely that it could never be fully rebuilt. Today, nearly a century after her death, Bessie's influence continues to soar. The Bessie Coleman Aero Club, founded in her honor, has trained thousands of pilots. Chicago's O'Hare Airport features a prominent display celebrating her achievements. The U.S. Postal Service issued a stamp in her honor. NASA has named spacecraft components after her. But the most powerful testament to her legacy isn't found in museums or monuments. It's found in the sky itself. Every time you see a female pilot, every time you see a pilot of color, every time you see someone doing something they were told was impossible, you're witnessing Bessie Coleman's eternal victory over prejudice. The aviation industry that tried to erase her has been forced to acknowledge what she proved in French skies and American air shows: that the ability to fly isn't determined by the color of your skin or the shape of your body, but by the size of your dreams and the courage to pursue them against impossible odds. Bessie Coleman touched the sky when society said she never could. She proved that a black woman could master the most advanced technology of her era. She showed that talent transcends every artificial barrier humans create. And in doing so, she didn't just become the first black woman to fly. She became a symbol of human potential that continues to inspire people around the world. Her story was buried by those who couldn't handle the truth it represented. For decades, history books ignored her achievements. Aviation museums excluded her contributions, and the establishment pretended she never existed. But truth has a way of rising to the surface, just like the aircraft she piloted toward the clouds. Today, we finally recognize Bessie Coleman as what she truly was: a pioneer whose courage opened skies for everyone who came after her. A woman who proved that the only limitations that matter are the ones we accept in our own minds. If this story moved you, imagine what other incredible histories have been buried by people who couldn't handle revolutionary truth. Subscribe to the channel and comment. Remember Bessie Coleman, so her name soars forever in the endless sky she fought to claim for all of us. Her legacy isn't just that she flew, it's that she made it possible for others to follow her into the limitless blue, carrying dreams that once seemed impossible but now feel inevitable.